Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, internet world, wherever you're watching us, right here on BamaCentral.com and right here on MizzouCentral.com. You're hanging out on the Joe Gaither Show. We're having a lot of fun on a Thursday. I know it's kind of that weird part where you don't know what day it is in the year. It's actually Thursday, December 28th. You're kind of in that twilight zone. You're a couple days away from the new year, but congratulations, you made it. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. In this first part of the segment on Mizzou Central and MizzouCentral.com. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about bowl games today. We had a lot of fun on Christmas talking to my cousin. You can watch that on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Amazon. Just search the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. We're going to have a lot of fun today talking to people who are on the road. We're going to talk to Joey Van Zummeren of MizzouCentral.com because he is out in Dallas talking Cotton Bowl as they are taking on big bad Ohio State Blue Blood. Ohio State will check out everything that's going on with Missouri, and then we will check out, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to go all the way out to California. We're going to go California dreaming with my friend Katie Windham of BamaCentral.com. You've been reading her coverage all week long at BamaCentral.com. You can follow everybody at MizzouCentral.com, at JoeyVZ_ at BamaCentral.com, and at Katie Windham _. Let's start with Joey Van Zummeren, and let's ask you, you've been in Dallas for, let's say, 30 hours roughly. I think you left on Wednesday is what I was told. Tuesday or Wednesday is what I was. Tuesday was the travel day is what I remember from our big budget. So you've been in there 30 plus 50 hours, roughly 55 hours. How much weight have you gained in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl? And how are you doing it?
Man, hopefully not too much, but yeah, just overall A+ treatment all around from the Cotton Bowl here for the media. It's been an awesome experience. I am currently in the bowels of AT&T Stadium. Jerry Jones didn't let me borrow his office for this, but I was able to find a room, and actually Mizzou and Ohio State's bands are having like a battle of the bands on the field right now, which I'm not too far away from, so I can hear some like rumbling going on back there, but hopefully it does not interfere with this today.
No, if we hear that, that's great. We love that.
Yeah, keep the pageantry in the podcast here.
Absolutely. So you're in, look. Have you been to AT&T? Is this your first time at AT&T Stadium?
Yeah, this is my very first time. I've been to a few other NFL stadiums, but this definitely. I mean, like I love the prestige and the history of Lambeau Field, of course, but this is truly a spectacular building here.
Well, so far, all right. So you left on Tuesday. You arrived Tuesday. Y'all have had a couple of days worth of media. We're talking about the Cotton Bowl, Missouri against Ohio State on Friday night at what, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock in the Lord's time zone. Goodness gracious, I cannot believe that for my father, you're going to have to stay up till 9 o'clock to watch probably the best game of Friday. But you got some of the luster taken away with opt-outs and transfers and portalees. Missouri hasn't really been affected too much with that. Ohio State has. Obviously, their quarterback has now committed to Syracuse, and they've had several different opt-outs as well. So why is Ohio State a 3-point favorite still on the books with Missouri, with Vegas line?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to see that. I think the biggest thing is that just despite all of these opt-outs, it's, Ohio State is going to recruit like the blue blood that they are. They just have so much depth. And even without their starting quarterback, like we talked about a few weeks ago, Devin Brown is a 4-star quarterback, sophomore, and was one of the best in his class. So they just have so much depth. They recruit so well that they have talent anywhere and everywhere. I'm a little bit surprised to hear that Ohio State is still 3-point favorites in this one. I think the big question that is
3.5
really not even a question. Yeah, I'm pretty surprised. And I think the big thing that will be a factor in that is the question that I don't even think a question that is a question at this point is whether or not Marvin Harrison Jr. will play. I will be pretty shocked. And it seems even Ryan Day and then offense coordinator Brian Hartline for Ohio State are kind of they understand that pretty much everybody has come to the realization that Marvin Harrison Jr. is not playing in this game because Marvin Harrison Jr. has very little to gain in this game.
Oh, you didn't correct me. The game's actually at 7 o'clock Central.
8 o'clock. I was thinking I was thinking one of us was wrong, and if I'm the wrong one, then we put the wrong time on Mizzou Central about 5 times. So
No,
I'm
no, no,
glad
no,
I
no,
was
no,
in the
no.
right there.
It is at 7 o'clock Central, so everybody can watch that on ESPN. A little bit better for our viewing audience. It's going to be Brady Cook. Brady Cook's going to get ready for his return to Michigan, but it's Cody Schrader's swan song, right? So, look, Eli Drinkwitz has really had a masterful 3 or 4 or 5 months now since August. I mean, obviously, you don't want to lose at home to LSU, and you don't want to lose on the road to Athens. And we've gone over that already at different points on the show with Joey Van Zummeren on MizzouCentral.com. But like, you've really had a strong season. You got a chance to knock off Blue Blood Ohio State, who is maybe still underrating you. What's been Eli Drinkwitz's message to his team through this time? I mean, man, I'm looking on Mizzou Central, the coming and going. You've lost 11 players, but look, as you look through these guys, not really many major losses on the depth chart. And you're not going to. We'll talk about the transfer portal additions in a moment. But really, what has Drinkwitz's message been to those remaining and getting ready for the bowl game against Ohio State?
Yeah, it's been interesting. He's kind of had a balance of not wanting to hype it up too much to make his guys overthink this game, but then also he is being straight and admitting, this is the biggest game Mizzou has played in a decade since the last time they played in the Cotton Bowl in the 2013 season, and it would be absolutely massive for this team to get this win. As far as, you mentioned the transfer portal, and, we were just talking about some of the players Ohio State lost and won't be having in this game. Eli has also talked quite a bit about how strong the connection is with this team, and that's why he believes all of these players are still playing, that even some of their players, like Chris Abrams-Drain is still playing in this game, even though he's likely to go in the NFL draft. They've talked all season long about the brotherhood they have here. They want to play for each other. The something to prove motto mostly means just proving each other right, playing for each other. And it's been really cool to watch that kind of the bond between the team was already really strong, but to see it grow throughout the season, to see them have the success and then now reach this point here, December 28, 1 point out from the Cotton Bowl. It's been really fun to watch.
All right, we're talking to Joey Van Zummeren of MizzouCentral.com. You can follow him at JoeyVZ_ on the X or Twitter machine. He's out in Dallas or Arlington, somewhere in between. What's the best thing you've done since you've been in the area, in the surrounding area for bowl prep? Either an activity for bowl prep or something you've done off the books that you really enjoyed about Dallas.
Yeah. So last night, actually, one of our friends, that Matt Guzman, he works at Mizzou Central too, and so he's from Austin, and he's very familiar with Dallas-Fort Worth area. So he took us out on a tour last night of downtown Dallas. We went to the American Airlines Center where the Mavericks and the Stars play. That was very fun. We went to an amazing Mexican restaurant, El Phoenix. And yeah, it was just an awesome trip downtown, and I was really impressed with the city. And like I said earlier too, I mean, the treatment here at the Cotton Bowl has just been unbelievable. I know you talked to me about it before coming here, and then I heard from everybody else that the treatment from the Cotton Bowl for the media and everybody really is top notch, and it is delivered.
That media lounge room is something else.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you get free Dr. Pepper and everything, and that's another thing I've been enjoying about Texas. I'm a Dr. Pepper fanatic, and it is, it's a Waco company, obviously, and it is just everywhere. So I've been loving that too.
Well, let's talk about really. I mean, okay, win or lose, this game for Missouri is not really. It doesn't really matter per se. Obviously, it's going to feel good and it's going to carry over the next 6 months if you do win. But if you lose, the season is still, hey, we had a great run in the SEC and we lost to a blue blood who's, probably one of the top 5 or 6 talented teams in the country, just as far as recruiting and depth-wise goes. You've really worked the transfer portal. Eli Drinkwitz has really worked the transfer portal well to his advantage. Getting Caden Green from Oklahoma. Is he the young man who's had his father's business vandalized online?
Yes.
Basically? Okay, so what in the world? I mean, big time tackle is going to come in and start for Missouri. He's going to basically be protecting Brady Cook and opening things up for the next running back in line. The whole story first, to get the big old tackle in the transfer portal,
Mhm.
and second, these Oklahoma. I mean, come on, this ain't how we do it in the SEC. I know Missouri, Joey, you guys are probably new in the SEC, but that's not how we do it in the SEC. You do have your trash talk on your Missouri Central online, but
Yep.
Missouri Central comment section, but don't go and ruin a young man's business or his father's business. What the hell,
Yeah.
man? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty unbelievable to me, and taking it. I mean, I hate this statement because a lot of times, non-sports fans that kind of don't understand, the excitement and the drama of it all will like say this, but at the end of the day, it is just a game. But like to ruin, like to bring somebody's life into this and potentially harm his like father's business is definitely uncalled for. But as far as Caden Green, hopefully, rough start for his Missouri career, I guess, at least for his father's in. But
Missouri, y'all gonna have to rally around him. Y'all gonna have to rally around him.
Yes, I think that would be great for the fan base to kind of realize, okay, we got to welcome this guy with open arms, which they definitely have already. And I think he's going to be a great addition to this team. Missouri will be losing their Javon Foster, their great offensive tackle. So Caden Green is a young player that I think is going to instantly contribute for Missouri next year.
All right, and you've also gotten a couple guys right out of the SEC. I mean, who else are you really excited about? I'll throw all the other five guys at you. Marcus Carroll, running back from Georgia State. Okay, that's not really as huge of a get, but Corey Flagg Jr., linebacker from Miami. Chris McClellan, defensive line from Florida. Toriano Pride, cornerback from Clemson, and Darius Smith. Anytime you get a Georgia player, that's going to say, big old gold stars. Who are you excited about outside of Caden Green?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'd like to highlight Toriano Pride out of Clemson. Former 5-star, I believe, out of St. Louis. And I think he's going to be another guy. Missouri's likely losing Chris Abrams-Drain and Ennis Rakestraw. They're two great boundary corners. So I think he's going to be able to instantly contribute on next year's team as well. Really excited to see him. And really, like we had talked about a few weeks ago too, with Drinkwitz having this season now to show guys, it's going to mean a lot, obviously. And, he's talked a lot about not having to sell. He basically said recruiting is about two things, reflecting on what you've done in the past to show guys what you can do. And, that what you can do is the second part, the future and the expectations for the future. And so now, instead of just, I would imagine it'd be tough when Drinkwitz was on the road recruiting before this season. He's like, he has 3 seasons at Missouri, right around 500. And, it's like, it would be hard to convince guys to go to Missouri instead of Georgia or Alabama. But now he has proof of what he has done. And there should be plenty of reasons for recruits to be optimistic. I mean, especially when you just look at the players, the homegrown talent, I would say that Missouri has developed. With my Packers, their whole thing, they operate different than most NFL teams. Their whole thing, though, is drafting and developing homegrown talent that Ted Thompson, former general manager, was so fond of. Instead of just signing a bunch of free agents and kind of putting a bunch of different mismatched pieces together and hoping it gels. Instead of doing that, it's growing the talent from home. And, this is a big talking point, obviously, with the transfer portal and how much college football is changing. But Missouri has shown that they can have guys for their whole careers, start with, a raw prospect, a raw player, and then turn them into elite players. I think, obviously the story of Cody Schrader going from a walk-on, a former Division II player, and then turning into the SEC leading rusher is a great one. And then also Chris Abrams-Drain, I think, is a great story too, and a great example of going from just a raw, talented player into a fine athlete. He came to Missouri as a wide receiver. He played quarterback in high school, and then now he's one of the best corners in the SEC and will probably be drafted early on in the NFL draft.
Joey, when you've been out there in Dallas, have they had their kind of media day sessions? And if so, or if they haven't, then who is the one player that you weren't able to talk to throughout the season that you really enjoyed talking to in y'all's media day session?
Yeah, so on Tuesday we talked to the Missouri offensive players, and then Wednesday, yesterday, defense, and then today we had Ryan Day and Drinkwitz. I would say I really enjoyed talking to wide receiver Theo Weiss, and he was really the main guy that I wanted to get a chance to talk to. The main story that I clean on to at first that kind of got me interested was the fact that he is from Allen, Texas, not too far from here. He played his first few years at Oklahoma, and at Oklahoma, he played in the Cotton Bowl in 2021 against Florida. And then he also played a few high school state championship games here. So he has plenty of experience at AT&T Stadium. So that's what initially got me interested. And then I really, was reflected on the season he had and what we had heard from Coach Drinkwitz and then also Luther Burden about the impact that Theo has had on the whole team this season.
Perhaps
Because
underrated nationally.
I would definitely think so. And also maybe even within the fan base, because I think his role is much larger than his production. And I have a feature coming tomorrow on Mizzou Central on that, and was able to talk to him and then also offense coordinator Kirby Moore. And I think it's a really interesting story on Weiss this season.
All right, well, we look forward to reading that on Mizzou Central, MizzouCentral.com. You can check that out tomorrow right there as you get ready for the Cotton Bowl. You're going to check it out on Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. We're really excited to be there in Arlington Stadium. All right, so the season's over. The storyline is what? What's the biggest thing that you're gonna have to look for the football team after win or lose tomorrow? And then we'll get your prediction and we'll get you out of here. But so the season's over. Okay. Everybody's crying that you're packing up AT&T Stadium. And you're like, what a season it was. And the next 6 months, this is the story for Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see how they deal with the pressure. This is the first time that this team is going to have expectations in a long time. And, they are going to be losing some talent here. But I think that as far as the main storyline for this team is just the fact that they went out on a mission. They claimed the something to prove motto during fall camp, and they absolutely delivered on that. The brotherhood, as cliche as it is, for a lot of different teams, they say they have just a really strong connection. You can feel the brotherhood. You can feel how close these guys are. And I was talking to some of them. I talked to Brady Cook on Tuesday, and then a few players on defense as well about this brotherhood. And I wanted to know really how exactly it translated to good play on the field, because you can be close friends with people, but if you send out 11 really close friends in college, that doesn't mean you're going to have a 10-2 season in college football. And they had some really interesting answers on just playing for each other, and that it didn't matter to them about what they individually were accomplishing, because their teammates meant so much to them that they wanted to see others have the same success and the team overall have the same success. So I think really, it might sound overstated and kind of just mimicking what the team is saying about the brotherhood and having something to prove. But I do really think that's the headline of the season for Missouri.
All right, obviously all the Mizzou Central readers will want the Tigers to win tomorrow night in AT&T Stadium, but Joey Van Zummeren, follow him at JoeyVZ_. What actually happens? The Ohio State Buckeyes at 3.5-point favorite at 7 p.m. right there on ESPN to kick off the New Year's Six and really carry the SEC's banner. Texas A&M loses last night. We'll see what Kentucky and Clemson end up doing, but really Missouri has a great chance to carry the SEC's banner. What happens tomorrow night in AT&T Stadium?
Man, a lot of different things could happen. I know a football game will happen for sure, but I think, man, I think if the game goes well for Missouri, I think the biggest thing for them will just be getting off to a fast start. A lot of games for Missouri have opened up in the first few series with Brady Cook launching a bomb to Usually Luther Burden is the recipient. Sometimes earlier in the season, freshman Marquise Johnson, who is just an absolute speedster, was on the other end of those. So if they're able to get a fast start, I really like Missouri's chances, especially, you're going up against a really, really good Ohio State defense. You take away that game from Michigan, and I mean, they're averaging, I think, somewhere around 9 points per game, which is just absurd. So really getting that fast start on offense is going to be the big thing. Will be interesting to see what Devin Brown is able to do. I don't think we mentioned him. Or we did it a little bit earlier, but he's only had 22 snaps or 22 passing attempts in his college career. They have no idea what they're really getting. Drinkwitz mentioned watching those 22 passing snaps, and it's just like, it was almost became more intimidating because it's like, wow, he can really do a lot of different things. He's dangerous on his legs, going to extend the play. So they'll have to do some in-game adjustments to that. But like I said, if Missouri is able to get out to a fast start and able to find any mismatch against that Ohio State defense, then I like their chances. And I think I think it will be close no matter what. But I like Missouri 31-27, I'll say.
31-27. We will see how it plays out tomorrow night in AT&T Stadium. Follow him at JoeyVZ_ and at MizzouCentral.com. Joey, enjoy the rest of you. You got another day and a half, probably a media party tonight or something like that. All right, well, enjoy yourself.
Probably.
And there's going to be a lot of good food. It'll be some prizes. Yes. You'll enjoy yourself. Have a great time, and we'll keep up with you at MizzouCentral.com and at JoeyVZ_ on the X or Twitter machine.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe.
Yes, sir. That's Joey Van Zummeren joining us, and we go from Dallas, Texas to Pasadena, California, and we welcome in Katie Windham right here from BamaCentral.com. You can follow her on Twitter at Katie Windham _, and you can read all her great work at BamaCentral.com. Katie, how is your day going? Obviously, you had Disneyland yesterday, a little bit more of a work day today, then 3 days out in California. How's it been going for you?
It's been going pretty well. Really, today's only the second full day because I landed pretty late Tuesday night. Disneyland was really, from a Disney perspective, underwhelming. They were very in and out. They were not letting us stop for pictures, snacks, no rides. But yesterday's media availability was great because they gave us Saban, Dallas Turner, Malachi Moore, Jalen Milroe, basically for 30 minutes, and you could basically get a one-on-one with them because it was just a lot of people were huddled on Saban, and it was kind of the most candid Jalen Milroe has gotten this season because a lot of times when he's behind that podium, he just seems to get really polished and canned with his answers, and so it was good to have them being in a more relaxed setting. They did get to go enjoy Disneyland Park yesterday afternoon. Sorry if I'm cutting in and out a little bit.
No, you're good. You're looking good.
I always have issues. Okay. It just is freezing up a little bit. But then today has been, this morning was offense media day, and then we got to go watch practice really for the first time since last year's bowl game, which was interesting, which of course they're not doing very much. Kind of the biggest news out of practice was that Damani Jackson was there, the DB from USC, who at one time, I believe was close to committing to Alabama, was teammates with Bryce Young, I believe, in high school. So, yeah, and so it's been a big day, and obviously, kind of the biggest news out of this morning was Isaiah Bond saying stuff he probably wasn't supposed to say about Alabama's film usage with Michigan. The question kind of stemmed from he was being asked about Michigan sign stealing, and then it kind of turned into maybe not necessarily sign stealing, but film stealing. And so, yeah, that's kind of been the biggest news out of this morning.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that. And you can read about it at BamaCentral.com if you haven't already. We extensively covered the media days. You can check out the Bama Central YouTube channel to watch all the interviews. We'll have the rest of the Michigan interviews up there pretty much as soon as I finish. But yeah, Isaiah Bond reveals And this was unclear to me. So maybe it'll become more clear throughout the rest of the week. But Isaiah Bond basically is asked about the sign stealing, as you alluded to, and says, "Oh, we're not allowed to watch film on our own. We have to watch film as a team or as a group or in the facility." And what I wondered was, is this an Alabama precaution against potentially hacking someone's iPad, or is this a NCAA, both teams have to be under some sort of a restriction because we're still investigating Michigan, trying to figure out what they know and what they've done? Where is this restriction? Who's placed this restriction on the Alabama football players?
From what I understand so far, it's not an NCAA thing. I think it is an Alabama choice. But so initially after it happened. So basically, kind of the way the media setup was this morning is there were 6 total representatives from each school, 1 coordinator and 5 players, and they had 2 separate rooms: a room that was print only and a room that was like you could film in. So since we had 3 people here, and it was 3 and 3 at a time, and then they swapped about halfway through. And so I stood there at the podium the whole time with Bond, and then when they swapped, Jason McClellan came in. And some Michigan reporters were asking Isaiah Bond about Michigan sign stealing, and that's kind of when he got into it. And like probably 1 minute after he said that, Alabama's head SID, Josh Maxson, came over. And I thought he was about to either say something to the reporter or say something to Bond about what he had just said. But I think he was just kind of wandering around checking on everything. And I don't think he knew what he said. Because like obviously all the Michigan reporters' antennas kind of got raised when Isaiah was talking about that. And it was interesting. And then when Jace got up, people were asking him about it too. And so I was confused when it happened because I was like, someone explained this to me like I'm 5. Like, why is Michigan stealing signs? What does that have to do with guys watching film on their iPad at home? Why would they steal film of like, because I think my brain thinks watching film is watching the opponent's film. And I'm like, why would it matter if the players are watching Michigan film? Sure. But then when I went back and listened to what Bond said, I think he's talking about the players when they look at their own practice footage sometimes of like the way they're scouting and things like that. And so I think that's more what it is. But so I went up to another one of Alabama's SIDs and I was like, do you know what they're talking about? Like Michigan reporters asked these guys about this. They said they're not allowed to watch film on their own. Like, do you know, I don't understand. Do you know what that is? And he didn't know what I was talking about. And I don't think he knew that the players were talking about that because kind of the setting that it was in, there weren't, it's not a controlled environment. It's certainly not a controlled environment by Alabama where they're calling on somebody to ask a question and it's a, you get your one question, you move on. It's guys can go back and forth. And so let me go back because I transcribed.
It sounded like he was talking about as you're looking, and absolutely, thank you for more clarity. But it sounded like he was talking about the catapult system, was the practice system that their footage gets uploaded to, and so it made me think that they don't want the players' iPads. Let's just say Isaiah Bond, for example, is out there on a plane or is out there at dinner or is out there wherever, and somebody to either pick it up and be able to get into it. It sounded more like a precaution from the Alabama side to prevent any kind of espionage on the Michigan standpoint.
Yeah, but I know like a lot of times players like watch film like just at home, like on those iPads, because like you see in Terron Arnold's in his like YouTube series that he has, like there's clips of him watching film at home. So I don't know, but this was so. This is kind of what started all. Isaiah Bond, this is my transcription of it, was asked about, did you keep up with the Michigan sign stealing scandal? Did you pay attention to that? Whatever. And he said, I heard about it. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. That's in the past. The catapult system that I guess they were taking signs from, they made it down anyways for the playoff because of that. And so when I'm listening back, I'm saying when he says they made it down, when he said it live, I thought he meant Michigan still made it in the playoffs in spite of that. But I think maybe he's saying they made it down as in like, I don't know if he's saying Alabama took it down, but that's what he said. And then he said, when we get on the field, they're not going to have to play it. They're going to have to play us anyway. So all that sign stealing is not going to help them. And then the Michigan reporter kind of followed up and said, like, what do you mean catapult? Like, what are you talking about? And he said, the app where we record film off of practice and stuff like that. And they were, I guess, looking at other people's play calls, their hand signals, the first 8 games or something like that. So we're able to watch film with this team, but personally, we can't watch film. I don't know. Some reason with Michigan stealing signs, I'm not really too keyed in on that. And then he kind of said that the coaches told them probably like a week before, right when they were starting to get prepared for Michigan. The guy followed up again, said, so no watching film on individual tablets. And he said, yeah, we're not allowed to. But then later when Jason McClellan was up there, somebody was asking him about it. And he said, yeah, the thundercloud. Somebody could get our information. You never know. So we just send it to one computer that the coaches have. So I'm like, there's all sorts of like technology that I'm sure the two of them were not supposed to be talking about that, we don't even know, that we don't even think about as fans or reporters, all the stuff that goes into game prep. And basically it sounds like they're trying to streamline. I think it's maybe they don't want it on other Wi-Fi's. They want it streamlined to one device that the coaching staff themselves are controlling. And that's what I've gathered so far. When Saban is made available, which I think will be not until Sunday, he will of course get asked about that. Well, Saturday there's team media day, but I don't think Saban's at that. I think it's all just the players. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. It just kind of adds a whole nother wrinkle to this Michigan sign stealing thing that obviously the Michigan reporters have been, honed in on this subject all year long. It's been a big, drama for them, but it's kind of an interesting situation here. And sorry if I've just been talking about this for too long.
No, it's fascinating to me. I've talked about the Michigan sign stealing a bunch on the program, and so like either the Alabama precautions, and I do think that if you hear referencing your Jace McClellan, the thundercloud, I bet you they are trying to keep it on a secure server so that keep all the information on a secure server, whether it's Michigan's cut-ups or Alabama's cut-ups or practice film, whatever the case may be. I wonder.
It seems like next level, like galaxy brain, like for a college football game, but it's like clearly they're not just doing this for no reason,
So my next question, Katie, is I wonder how much money this extra precaution has to take from Nick Saban or Greg Byrne. If Nick Saban walks into Greg Byrne's office and says, "Hey man, we're doing this, and that," and Greg Byrne says, "Okay," or if there's a discussion there, or who researches, like obviously Cedric's not researching it. I love you, Cedric, but that's not his like department. Like, who's figuring out this is the best encryption fee or this is the best way to keep everybody out? It's crazy.
Yeah. Or I mean, maybe something that doesn't cost anymore, and they've just eliminated the using of their iPads or watching film on their computer or phones or whatever. Because I've even seen guys looking at it on their phones before.
Well, what did you get to see at practice today? Anything fun, or was it just stretching and in the individual period and everybody walked off and then they actually practiced?
Yeah, it was pretty much that. I mean, we walked in and they were going through their, initial stretching. We saw like a little bit of, the drills. I think, one of the most interesting things to me was that, I guess it's not really that interesting or surprising, but that, Tyler Buchner, he was out there with the quarterbacks, but like wasn't like and like kind of running around wherever they would go and was like in line, but like he never actually threw the ball. Like he is no longer like they're like, you're not playing football anymore. You're playing lacrosse. You're not playing. You're not even practicing. But then like he was practicing, and I don't know if he'll practice more when we're not there. But like when they were going through the drills, whether it was the quarterbacks handing the ball off, so like Jalen was handing it off to Jace, Simpson to Roydell, and so on down the line. Julian Sand was going fifth in that group, and then Tyler Buchner would kind of be like standing there and then just like not participating. And I don't know if it's because like there's only 5 running backs or like what the deal is. And obviously there's a huge number of players out on the field because for the playoffs they bring all the walk-ons. It's kind of a reward for them at the end of the season. So there's like duplicates and triplicates of numbers out there. Of I feel like I saw like 10 different people wearing the number 2 jersey out there because part of them are just being scout team. So it's kind of hard to pick up on. What was going on at practice, but really a lot of eyes, of course, were on the quarterback. And then Jace McClellan, he seemed to be practicing fine. And really a lot of times this time of year, you see a lot of guys in black jerseys. I remember last year at the Sugar Bowl, we saw guys over riding the bike. Their arm would be in a sling or whatever that we didn't necessarily know about. And today, Alabama could have just been hiding them, or the guy could slip on a black jersey after we leave. But at least for when we were out there, outside of the quarterbacks who were always wearing the no contact jerseys, I didn't notice anyone else in a black jersey. And so that's a good indication for Alabama health wise that things are on a pretty good track.
Let's talk about something that we heard from the Missouri defensive coordinator and the Missouri players. One overall theme from the players was they thought that they could match the SEC speed. Okay, that's one part of the conversation. The real specific part of the conversation that I want to ask you about is Alex Orji. Alex Orji is Michigan's second/third string quarterback. He's kind of, sometimes he gets in, sometimes he's just kind of that wildcat guy. He is the guy who's playing Jalen Milroe in their scout team prep. And Jesse mentioned, the defensive coordinator, basically praised him, and all the defensive players praised him and said, yes, we think he's getting us ready. We think he's giving us a good look. Now, of course, he's your teammate. I'm always going to praise my teammate, and we're going to keep any kind of internal discussions in-house, any kind of criticisms in-house. So some of that's to be expected. But really, I've seen Alex Orji a couple of times in film. He is a good little athlete. I know that that Harbaugh really, really likes him. Do you think there's any possible way? Because my big take for the last couple of weeks is that Michigan hasn't seen anything like Jalen Milroe on their Big Ten schedule. Now, they might have one on the practice field with Alex Orji, but is there any way it's a one-to-one comparison, or even apples to apples? It might be green apple to red apple. Is there any sort of comparison here from Alex Orji to Jalen Milroe?
I mean, I don't really know enough about the Michigan kid to speak on this to any, great knowledge, but I think it's, of course, like, I think it's kind of what you're saying. Like, of course, they're going to back up, they're going to hype up their teammates, as in, and this is someone that works with football. I mean, every game, teams use certain players as on scout team to replicate the opponent, but it can only go to a certain extent. Like, there's not an exact Jalen Milroe replica on the Michigan roster, and it's like that every week. So I mean, I'm sure he's giving them some good looks. Will it be able to fully kind of replicate what they're going to see with Jalen Milroe? I don't know. Jalen Milroe is a super physical quarterback. He's got great arm strength. He's also, obviously shown his running ability the last couple weeks too. So, I'm sure it's good scout team looks for them. I think it's going to be a different thing come game time. And I think there's a little bit of, I think a lot of this Michigan stuff today kind of stems from at one point yesterday with the Disneyland press conference. It was kind of, like I said earlier, you could kind of get one-on-ones, go ask whatever you want. It was a long media availability, and a Michigan reporter came over and asked Jalen about, what stood out about Michigan's defense, kind of the basic questions, and then asked something about Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State's wide receiver, talking about that Michigan's coverages were really confusing. And that's when Jalen kind of answered with, I play in the toughest conference in the country. Like, I see that week in, week out. And then I think that's kind of sparked all this stuff today about, SEC, Big Ten, that kind of stuff. And so, I think they are different. I think Michigan probably also has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder of how they've performed against the SEC, especially in the playoffs, in the postseason, or I guess even in the regular season too. You look back at that 2012 matchup with Alabama, and now it's crazy to think that was over a decade ago, but was not close at all.
Right.
And so, and a lot of times when Alabama's played some of these Big Ten teams in the postseason, you think about Michigan State in the 2015 playoffs, not close at all. It's a little bit different scenario this year with Michigan being number one and technically being the favorite. But I think they do still have a little bit of that chip on their shoulder of, they're from the Big Ten, even though they are the number one statistical defense in scoring, and I think they're second in yards per game. They're also not facing the most dynamic, electric offenses. And so it's going to be, I think, different for them. Not that I asked Jace McClellan, who's not the most enthusiastic in front of the media normally today. I kind of asked him about, if playing in the SEC kind of prepared him for this. And I asked him if he thought the Michigan defense looked like an SEC defense. And he said on film they do. So I don't know if he was just,
they look fast on film. They do look fast on film. It's hard to tell, though, because I'm with you, Katie. They haven't really been tested as far as quarterback play or dynamic. Yes, Marvin Harrison is a dynamic receiver, but outside of the one game, they haven't really been pushed, in my opinion. So it's hard to tell.
Well, even just like a little thing I noticed today when I was looking at some of the Michigan defender stats is Michigan, I think I don't have the tab up anymore, but I can pull it up pretty quick. Their second leading tackler has like 50 something tackles. So there's like 6 or 7 people on Alabama's defense that have more than their second leading tackler.
They're not on the field a whole lot.
Yeah, had like 33 tackles, which is like just insane. But it's because like, yeah, they're playing they've played mainly completely different styles of offenses than that. And their guys, yeah, their leading tackler, Junior Colson, has 79 tackles. Their second has 52, third 43, fourth 33 tackles, compared to Alabama, where Caleb Downs, I think, is like at 99 now or something like that.
Yep.
Is their leading tackler, he's in the 90s, which is high. He's at 99. And then you have, 3 guys in the 60s, like 5 guys in the 50s, and Michigan only had 1. So it's just their defense hasn't had to be on the field a ton. They haven't played a lot of dynamic offenses. There's a reason why they're number 1 and that they've gotten themselves in this position. But it also is interesting with all the sign stealing stuff and the, now the potential film stealing. It's just I'm not saying Michigan stealing film. I don't want to be, misquoted on that, but it's just all this stuff is super interesting. And I think it will be a good matchup on Monday. Is that the day of the game?
Yep. Breaking news, Katie Windham, BamaCentral.com says that Michigan is stealing film from Alabama. Go ahead and put that on all the billboards, put it on all the underscore lines for ESPN. You need to lock up your iPads if you are Alabama. Okay, so Jalen Milroe, yes. Okay, you've got the SEC action back and forth. What are you looking forward to? You got open press conference in 2 days. Who's the 1 or 2 guys that you're looking forward to talking to that you haven't been able to talk to this whole season?
That's a good question. There's really a lot of guys.
Because there'll be coaches available as well.
Yeah, there's really a lot of guys because this has been from a media standpoint, a pretty like limited season. Is that we've kind of gotten the same guys over and over, which to an extent you always do. But talking to some of the SIDs, they said like a bunch of guys had gotten approved, and then when Alabama lost to Texas, approved to speak to the media, and then when Alabama lost to Texas in week 2, it kind of pulled the reins back on some of them. So there's a lot of guys, not just the freshmen. Of course, we'd like to talk to Caleb Downs kind of about his year, and Caden Proctor in his year, and he's had a lot of ups and downs. For Caleb Downs, it's mostly been ups. There haven't been, since the beginning of the year, a lot of downs. But for Caden Proctor, obviously he's had a rough journey, but has improved a lot. And then you also want to talk to some of the freshmen that, like Justin Saints, that maybe haven't gotten as much playing time as you thought, or some of these guys that are a little bit buried on the depth chart. A guy like Kendrick Law that Saban always speaks highly of, but still hasn't gotten like a ton of reps. Kind of which we have spoken to him this year, I guess. But guys kind of like that are in that situation where, we haven't this year really talked to Jalen Key, but we really haven't talked to the transfers. We haven't talked to CJ Dupree. Who else was I just thinking? We haven't talked to Malik Benson. So we have talked to Trez Marshall. But there's a lot of guys on this team that we haven't talked to. So it's going to be a lot of dividing and conquering on media day to try and get to as many guys as possible. I'm sure Alabama will try and limit the minutes to as small as possible to make it a little more difficult. But it should be fun, and it should be an interesting and hopefully revealing time to get to talk to some of these players that we don't normally get to talk to, and kind of without the pressure of when we get to do it in this scrum style setting. It's so much more casual. The players are more laid back when there's not, SIDs breathing down their throats, or they're standing behind a podium and feel the need to be super formal. And you can also kind of be more personal with them and hopefully get them to open up a little more. So I'm looking forward to it.
We've been talking to Katie Windham of BamaCentral.com. You can follow her at Katie Windham _. She's one of our 3 correspondents that we've got out in California, along with Austin Hannon and Blake Byler. All right, one thing: have the boys embarrassed themselves in any way? You gonna tell us any dirt on the boys while they're not listening?
I don't think so. Not really. We haven't. I feel like it's weird because, like you said, like I guess technically this is my 3rd day here, but in a way, they got here yesterday morning, and then pretty much we had to go straight to Disney.
Right to work.
We kind of had some issues both times getting checked into our hotels, but it all got resolved. But.
Oh no! What do you think Coach Saban was thinking as he's riding in the parade with Miss Terry and the granddaughter? Obviously, it's a nice day out, and you got to participate in it. But you think Coach Saban's like driving him crazy, just sitting there like, "Oh, I got to be watching film right now."
I think it was. I don't think he was enjoying it a lot, and it was funny. Like we had like this roped off section on Main Street that was like for media only. And there was like, because Michigan was in the parade too, there's Michigan reporters. There were some, for the Rose Bowl people and some national people. But it was funny, like when Saban like saw us over there, and like those of us that he recognized us from the beat was kind of like, not those people here. Like it was like a quick, like he saw us and like I'm gonna look the other way to like wave at those people. But Miss Terry looked like she was having a great time. She had a shaker, and their granddaughter was, I'm sure, loving. I mean, that's every little girl's dream, to be in a parade on Main Street, USA. I mean, you can't beat that.
That was awesome for them, and it looked like the players enjoyed themselves as well. It kind of stinks that y'all weren't able to ride a ride or take a photo or do anything fun. Will there be anything fun for the beat besides? Obviously, I'm sure there'll be a party of some sorts. Will there be anything activity-wise, California, over the next 3 days until kickoff on Monday?
Yeah, there's a media party on New Year's Eve tomorrow, and the next day is like the Lowry's Beef Bowl, which tomorrow is Michigan's day, and then the next day is Alabama's, I think. Or maybe Michigan's is tonight and Alabama's is tomorrow. Yeah, that's correct. Michigan's is tonight and Alabama's is tomorrow. And at this thing, there's like supposedly like a beef eating contest or something. I don't know. So that'll be interesting. We're allowed to go get B-roll from that. I'm going to go see MJ the Musical on tour in LA tonight, so I'm looking forward to that. But I don't know if other our little credential has the schedule on the back, so that's what I'm looking at.
Oh, it's all good. We're just trying to be for the Rose Bowl, the Tournament of Roses, the Parade of Roses.
What else they have? I don't think there's anything else planned for us. The media room down here is very nice. The hospitality is great. The workers here are nice, so that's been fun.
Excellent. All right, so we'll get you out of here by kind of giving – I don't know if I'll have you back before – I mean, I'm going to try to have shows all the way up until Monday. Would you like to give a prediction, or would you like to jump back on at a later date and kind of give me your feel for the game?
I'll jump back on to see how things go throughout the rest of this week, kind of see what Saban says at the end or on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday morning before the game, and see kind of what the vibe is.
Sounds perfect. We're going to be joined by Anthony Broome of On 3, Wolverine on 3. So we'll transition to Anthony Broome here in just a minute. Katie, have a lot of fun. MJ on tour. Is that Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan? I'm just teasing.
It's Michael Jackson. It's like a musical based on his life, which I'm not a huge Michael Jackson fan. Who knows? I
think Coach Saban will be there. We know he's a big Michael Jackson fan.
Oh, he is? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he loves all those, not 80s, like
the old music. Yeah, I don't know if he was. It's a jukebox musical, so it's Michael Jackson music, and it is like telling the story of his life. But I've heard it's really good dancing, which I like to see in shows. So,
well, it'll be a blast. I hope you have a lot of fun. We'll catch up with you later on in the week. Follow Katie Windham at @KatieWindham_ and all her work at BamaCentral.com, as she is boots on the ground out there in California. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, ma'am. That's Katie Windham joining us, and we appreciate her joining us. We're going to be joined by Anthony Broome in just a little bit of time. He's going to join us from the Wolverine on 3. He's going to talk to us about Michigan. I'm really excited to hear from him, because I got some questions. I wonder how the psychology. I listened to all the Michigan interviews earlier today from the Michigan defenders and the Michigan defensive coordinator, Jesse Mentor. We're going to hear from the offensive coordinator and their offensive players tomorrow. I listened to a bit of Tommy Reese. I'm going to catch up and listen to Isaiah Bond. I did hear the clip where she talked about the film stealing. I think that's a very, very interesting aspect of this game. Is anybody infiltrating Alabama's iPads, or is Alabama going overboard to protect their identity, to protect their information? Oh, boy. I'm really interested to hear why, in Anthony's perspective, Michigan is still a favorite in this game. Is it just Big Brand Michigan? The boys betting Michigan big? Everybody, they are a big brand. It's not Alabama, but it's definitely a blue blood brand. We've talked a lot about blue bloods on this program, already hearing from Joey Van Zummeren of MizzouCentral.com, and I really appreciate him joining us, and Katie Windham joining us of BamaCentral.com. It's going to be a really, really exciting weekend talking about bowl games. Look, we talked about it yesterday a little bit. Oklahoma State did end up beating Texas A&M, and so that's obviously I got one right there. There's a bowl games today. It's going to be right now. Rutgers and Miami are playing in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. Miami trails by 7 with 30 seconds left, so they're trying to make a last-ditch effort. There's no SEC action. Unless you count the Alamo Bowl tonight. Is going to be Arizona and Oklahoma. Oklahoma was suffering a lot of opt-outs. Arizona a 2-point favorite. I guess we'll take the Arizona Cardinals in the Alamo Bowl due to what they lost their quarterback. Oklahoma lost their quarterback to Oregon. So I think that's going to be your next SEC game. Outside of that, what's your SEC games? You got Kentucky. You have Kentucky. Let's see. Oh, I think Anthony just messaged me back. Cool. Just got down to the media room, so give me a second to set up. That sounds perfect. That's perfect. Anthony Broome is going to join us in just a minute from the Wolverine on 3. You can follow Anthony Broome at Anthony T. Broome on the X machine. He's got 14,000 followers. He's almost at 15. So you guys are going to want to follow him. Why don't I set up a banner? We'll do this as we go, because we're not dealing with Katie anymore. We are the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, featuring Anthony Broome of the Wolverine on 3. Look at that. I know we're really boring everybody right now, but we'll get that going in just a second. Look, so keys to the game. We've talked about it while Anthony's getting set up. I'm really looking forward. Missouri or Michigan, I wonder what the motivation level is with them. They're 0-2 in their last bowl games. Look, we spent a lot of time in the preseason talking about breaking Georgia's streak. They're 3 in a row. Are they going to win 3 national championships in a row or not? And then obviously they did not. Alabama did their job in the SEC championship game. And now Michigan's trying to break their own sort of three-peat. They're trying to break an 0-2 cycle. They lost to Georgia. They got basically punked by Georgia. There was a lot of Georgia conversation today in the media room with the Michigan players. And then they obviously lost to TCU last year when TCU was throwing them junk signs and junk signals. I wonder how much junk signs and junk signals, if that's going to be something that Nick Saban operates, or if they're just going to operate with a headset. You've seen some bowl teams do that this year, or if they're just going to operate just like normal and say, hey, if you stole our signs, best of luck to you. It's going to be a really interesting, I think, overtone to this game, especially from, look, the Alabama fans, they're going to look for any sort of conspiracy if Alabama is shut down by this Michigan defense. And this Michigan defense is good. This Michigan defense is what? Number 2 in the nation in total yards. So they've given up 240 yards a game, which is like nothing. They're number 2 right behind Penn State. They're giving up basically nothing. And Katie Windham alluded to it on the program just a little bit ago in her segment with the Michigan's tackles. They're not really giving up anything. They're getting off the field 3 and out. They're marching down their opponents. They're winning time of possession, and they're winning games big because they're basically choking teams out throughout their season. Now, the Michigan players today were very confident. They were very confident because of exactly what Katie said. They reiterated that they think that they can handle Michigan's that Alabama speed. They don't think that there's a huge difference between the Big Ten and the SEC. I beg to differ. Now, there was a lot of comparison to Alabama is like Ohio State. Alabama is like Penn State. They're like Ohio State or Penn State. There's some of that that is true, but they were talking about Alabama's line. They said Alabama's line is bigger than Ohio State's. I think Alabama is going to be in for a bit of a fight. It's going to be a lot of fun on January 1st at 4 o'clock Central Time. Alabama's still an underdog, but I think you're going to see a game where Alabama's offense lights up for big plays, but is frustrated throughout the game, and is unable to sustain offense throughout the game, but is more likely to have big plays, and that's how Alabama is able to maybe stay in front, maybe just stay right ahead of Michigan in this game, and maybe that's the way that they can keep their defense hopefully from not tiring out, because Michigan, that's one thing that Michigan likes to do: long drives, play after play after play, convert on third downs, keep you on the field. And we've seen Alabama in the playoff before. Stay with their defense on the field a long time. Look, I think we talked about it on yesterday's program when we ranked the college football playoff teams from Alabama's past. I think 2016 was one of Alabama's best teams. They lost, obviously, the national championship game, but they were on the field for like 99 plays in that game. In this semifinal, Alabama has to get off the field on third down, cannot let Michigan sustain drives on them. I think that will put more and more pressure on the Alabama offense. So I'm really, really excited to get into the Rose Bowl with some of the opposite perspective. We already heard from Joey Van Zummeren about the Cotton Bowl from Mizzou Central. We heard from Katie Windham already about what she saw at open practice today from Alabama. Obviously, a whole lot of nothing. We know Nick Saban kind of keeps that under wraps. We're going to go to the Wolverine on 3 and find our new friend. We're going to find Anthony Broome. You can find him on Twitter or on X at Anthony T. Broome on the Twitter/X machine. Anthony just got into LA, but he's going to give us the opposite side of the coin. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I'm glad you got out to LA safely. How are you, sir?
Of course, glad to be here. It took a couple shuttles and a couple Ubers to get to where I need to be, but happy to finally be here for, again, the biggest game that I've covered on this Michigan beat. So thank you for thinking of me and having me here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us some of your perspective, because really all that's been on our side of the show for the last 2 weeks has been, Alabama's going to box Michigan in and Alabama's going to beat Michigan and blah, blah, blah. And I know that Michigan's a really, really talented team. They wouldn't be the number one team in the nation if they weren't. So give us the Michigan perspective. We saw the defensive players up at the podium today. We saw defensive coordinator Jesse Minter up at the podium as well. And basically they espouse confidence. And why wouldn't they? They're the number 2 defense in the nation as far as total yards, giving up 239, 240 yards a game, something like that. They've really not been too challenged, and largely that's due to their own dominance. So 0-2 in the last 2 semifinal games. Big bad Alabama, another big blue blood program. Michigan, what's the confidence level? They're going to take down Alabama, get to the national championship game, and get over the hump. Obviously, you cover Michigan, so what is the feel for the Wolverines?
Yeah, there is a confidence about them. They expected to be here. And whether it was Florida State, whether it was Alabama, whether it was Georgia, whoever it was going to wind up being, Michigan expected to be in the college football playoff. That's why Blake Corum came back. That's why Zach Zinter came back, which makes his injury unfortunate from that perspective. But there were a lot of guys that are on this team this year that either could have been or should be on NFL rosters right now. And they cited unfinished business. They've been dominant throughout the year. And I know there was a lot made about the ballroom reaction to the college football playoff matchups being announced. And I think someone that was in that room, I think the vibe was more surprised that Florida State got in. But, for a Michigan team, a Michigan program under Jim Harbaugh that, has not had postseason success, this is, regardless of what people think about this Alabama team, there is no better opponent. There is no better coach. There's no better pedigree to test yourself, how far you've come over these last 3 years, than to take on a guy and a program that have been, the so-called boogeymen of college football. So for me, I think that these guys are excited to be out there and show what they can do. It's the number 1 team in the country. They don't lack confidence in that regard. I think there's been a lot of ownership of that. So I get the sense, again, I just got in. Wasn't with the guys earlier today when they did the press conferences here, but I get the sense that this team's ready to roll and ready to put the narrative of these last 2 years in the college football playoff behind them.
All right, for the last 2 weeks or so, I've been praising J.J. McCarthy as a Jackson Dart-esque quarterback, the Ole Miss quarterback, and a lot of my counterparts or fans have been saying, "Oh no, look how few yards he's thrown for over the last 5, 6, 7 games." But that's because Michigan hasn't really maybe needed to pass the football. Tell me what you see in J.J. McCarthy if he's called upon, if Blake Corum's, unable to rush the ball successfully, Donovan Edwards as well, if they're unable to really get the running game going, can J.J. McCarthy carry this Michigan offense down the field with Roman, Wilson, and the rest of their receiving options? Obviously, great tight ends as well.
Well, the one thing I would say about, again, I take the numbers and the production with a grain of salt because J.J. McCarthy and the starting offense didn't play a game into the fourth quarter until I think it was November 11th. So they went almost 2 months where those guys were, and again, there's something to be said about being battle tested through 4 quarters earlier on in the season. But when you look at how some of those numbers have tapered off, again, they played Penn State, they played Ohio State, they played an Iowa defense, all 3 of those teams in the top 5. So like there's been this narrative of top 5 defenses. I mean, there's been this narrative of, oh, well, the Michigan offense has cooled down and they've kind of gone away from their identity and J.J. McCarthy's been exposed. Well, Michigan has played 3 or 4 of the best defenses in college football over those, that last stretch of the season. That's just how the schedule shook out. So again, they're going to need more out of him in this game. They're going to need probably his best game with both his arms and his legs. But for me, I think that when you look at what he's been able to do within the confines of this offense, I mean, he is, Michigan inherently is ball control. They want to control the line of scrimmage. They want to run clock. They want to finish drives with touchdowns. And what J.J. McCarthy does all those things very well. Doesn't turn over the ball a ton. His mistakes kind of snowball on him, but really there was a game earlier this year where he threw 3 picks in the non-conference against Bowling Green. He had a pick in the end zone against Maryland late in the year. That's really been it in terms of the major mistakes. And sometimes the way that he plays the game, like there are near mistakes that wind up being positives and highlight plays for Michigan. But what McCarthy does is he adds that element of improvisation to an offense that, again, their identity is built on, picking up those 3rd and 4s, those 3rd and 5s, those 3rd and 8s, those kind of demoralizing downs that help you sustain drives and finish with touchdowns and points. And they've done that extremely well. I mean, to go to Penn State and really dominate that way without J.J. McCarthy throwing more than 8 passes in the game. Ohio State, again, he was only, I think it was 13 for 17 or something like that, but efficient, calm, made the big plays when they needed to be made. And they're going to need more of that in this game because this is an Alabama defense. Obviously, you guys know. I mean, arguably 4 first-round picks potentially on, with the edge guys, the cornerbacks. So they're going to need his best football. But I think that he's up for the challenge, and having these 4 weeks, it's got to get healthy. He had an ankle injury in that Penn State game, had a bone bruise in his knee he was dealing with down the stretch. I think, you want to find a way to recapture that momentum and keep it rolling down the stretch, over this layoff that they've had. But with him, I think that the layoff will be beneficial given that it gives him a little more time to heal up.
We're talking to Anthony Broome of the Wolverine.com, part of the On3 Sports Network. You can follow him at Anthony T. Broome on the X Machine. What's it been like? Put us, we've been covering Alabama. What's it been like being a part of the Michigan beat this year? Obviously, the number one team in the country, undefeated, great football on the field, but Sunday through Saturday morning, it's been nothing but controversy. What in the world? Put us in your shoes covering the Maize and Blue.
I have told people all season long that us as a media collective, covering the Michigan beat, we are living a 30 for 30 in real time. Like it is always something. It's been something since they got off the plane from the Fiesta Bowl last year. The burger stuff, the recruiting violations. Fast forward to October, you've got the sign stealing stuff. And, that's a storyline that kind of reared its, returned with media availability today. So it has been, I take good pride in being knowledgeable about every situation that's going on, but I am a little too familiar with NCAA bylaws and legal jargon that I would have liked to be this season. So if you have any questions about the NCAA rulebook, first of all, it's not super clear. So I don't know how much clarity I can provide to that, but I've done a little more research than I expected to on a lot of those topics this year.
Well, the average Alabama fan is looking at Michigan like, cheaters, why are they even in this game? what's been, I mean, where does the current sign stealing, is it behind you because is the investigation, is everything behind you because Jim Harbaugh served, 3 games at the end of the year? Or is there something more hanging over Michigan? Obviously, the storyline is going to be there until it kind of washes out, and whether Jim Harbaugh stays or goes in the offseason is kind of up in the air. But where do you technically stand as far as Connor Stallions, the investigation? I know he's fired. What's the lay of the land?
Yeah, it's definitely not behind them. I think, given that the NCAA is investigating, there's going to be, and they've said that they're expediting it, but expediting it, I mean, it takes 18 months instead of 3 years. So again, I mean, I'll say this, a lot of it feels very Harbaugh directed. He's been a lightning rod for a lot of reasons. Some justified, some probably not. But there's going to be a price to pay for that. I don't know if it comes in the form of a little more of a suspension. I suspect they'll probably pay a huge fine for it. They'll probably be on some sort of probation. But really, I want to make this very clear. If Michigan's caught having done something that broke the rules, they're going to have to eat a punishment for it, and they should eat a punishment for it. But a lot of the initial bluster around that situation was just that, in terms of, oh, this is the worst scandal in Big Ten history. It's not even the worst scandal that's ever happened at Michigan. Certainly not, when you think of some of the off-field stuff that's gone on, and even not just the Big Ten, but at other schools. And, that's not me exonerating them for it. But I do think that when the dust clears on all of this, don't get me wrong. I mean, you can point the finger and say, well, look at what's going on at all these other schools. Well, you got caught with your hand in the cookie jar. So there's going to be a price to pay for that. I don't know what that is yet, because it's still not clear what rules were technically violated. And again, I know that it's not a court of law when you deal with the NCAA. You are dealing with, they can choose to enforce the rules that they have written however they see fit. But again, I don't know what comes next. I don't think you're looking at any sort of death penalty. I don't think you're looking at another season-long suspension for Jim Harbaugh or anything like that. If I had to guess today what happens, I would say, because there's still this other, the quote-unquote Burgergate scandal too, that Michigan was just served a notice of allegations on. That's something that could drag out over the course of a few years. So I would have to think that, it wouldn't surprise me to see, obviously, maybe a few more games tacked on for Jim Harbaugh. Maybe next season, maybe not. Maybe he's not even at Michigan to serve it. And that's the other thing too, is I do think if Jim Harbaugh does leave, a lot of this probably goes away. Not in terms of what the institution has to deal with, but in terms of what he's facing, in terms of the heat that he and his staff deal with. So again, it is a fascinating time to follow this. Again, we're inside of a 30 for 30 in real time, and the Rose Bowl is just the latest chapter of that.
Absolutely. We're talking to Anthony Broome of On3 Sports Network, the Wolverine. You can follow him at Anthony T. Broome. Building off of that, his team's still gone 13-0. His team's still been undefeated. So it hasn't – look, everybody in our circles is all like, well, it's going to catch up to them eventually. All the BS, they're not going to be focused. It's going to be distraction. It hasn't been. They've marched through pretty much every single team and marched through them. It was a good game with Ohio State, but marched through every single other opponent. Is there? So all that to say is it's not going to be a factor on Monday either. Maybe you missed it while you're flying into LA today, getting settled in. Isaiah Bond, one of the Alabama players, and Jace McClellan both revealing to the media that they aren't allowed to watch film on their iPad because Alabama's keeping all the film on kind of a secure network. It's not going to make a thing, but obviously the fans are going to make it a thing on Monday. How much impact do you think all the hubbub will make on Monday afternoon's game?
Not a whole lot. I think that most people, and I'd use my words carefully here because I don't want to alienate or offend anyone, but I think if you know football, you know that a lot of this is just that. It's talk, it's bluster. It's, at the end of the day, when you look at what, and I'm not making Michigan a victim in any of this, but when you look at how this whole operation, as Rich Eisen would put it, was ripped out, root and branch, no sign stealer, no Jim Harbaugh, the 3 toughest games on your schedule. At that point, it becomes you just play football. And this team has done a really good job just playing football through all of that. I almost feel like, when you look at what this team is, I won't say dealt with, but the things that have gone on around this team and around the building. It's almost like hitting the field is like that sweet escape or that sweet release for them. And a lot of these guys, like I said before, like they came back to play in games like that game at Penn State, like the game they played against Ohio State, like this game that we'll see on Monday. So again, Michigan could lose this game, but I don't know that it means that karma's caught up to them. It's because they will have. I mean, this is a college football playoff. These are all coin flip games now. If you play well, you're going to have a great chance to win. If you don't play well, it's going to be like the last 2 years. So to me, that's not karma. That's just football, and that's executing. And we'll see what this team is made of in that regard on Monday.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it on Monday at 4 o'clock Central Time. You can follow it at BamaCentral.com, and you can follow it at thewolverine.com, part of the On3 Sports Network with Anthony T. Broome. Follow him at Anthony T. Broome on Twitter machine. Let's talk about it real quick. We'll get you out of here on Blake Corum, just kind of his legacy, what he means. I think a lot of people are in this area are seeing him stack up with other running backs that Alabama's faced this year and saying, maybe he's underwhelming. But the man has 24 touchdowns, a lot of them obviously coming inside the 15-yard line. Talk about his legacy and really how much do you think that he's going to be able to be effective in this game against Alabama?
Well, they're going to have to run the ball well to have a chance to win this game. And Blake Corum's at the center of that. And again, another guy citing that unfinished business, didn't get to play in the playoff last year after tearing his meniscus in the Illinois game right before Ohio State. So to me, this is a guy that I think everything we've seen this year has led up to this. This is his moment now. In the same way that, the 2 touchdowns he scored against Ohio State was his chance to make an impact on his legacy, like you said. So for me, I think that Blake Corum is, if you're ranking players on either team that have the biggest impact in this game, Corum to me is in that top 3 or top 4, because he's a guy that, when push comes to shove, he always finds a way to get that extra yard. And he's automatic in those short yardage situations, especially at the goal line. To me, again, if Michigan's going to have it, if Michigan's going to walk out of this game with a win, you're going to have to find a way to push around Alabama a bit in that interior of the defensive line. And that's where Blake Corum, that's his area. And if they are fortunate enough to get out to the edges, that's where a guy like Donovan Edwards can have a big impact. But, Blake Corum, I won't say that they've kept him on ice this year, but, haven't seen games where he's had those 25 carries, 30 carries. I think that I won't say they're training wheels, but the shackles are completely off. If they have to run him 35 times in this game, they will do it. And if it's working, they will keep going back to him. And he is every bit as important as JJ McCarthy is, and a lot of other guys are, into what happens on Monday for Michigan.
Absolutely. Well, Anthony, we really appreciate your time. What's one thing that you think, maybe from your perspective or Michigan's perspective, that Alabama just isn't accounting for? One storyline that you think is going to play a factor that maybe the national media is not really accounting for? Something to leave us with, a final thought.
I would say that when you look at X factors in this game, I think that Michigan has a chance to move the football and do it really well with their tight ends. I think that Colston Loveland has a chance to be a mismatch out of the slot or in line. AJ Barner's a guy that has had some big games this year, big physical guy. That's the thing too, is so often these games, Big Ten, SEC, the most jarring thing to me is the leap up in physicality. But, when you look at the body types on Michigan's roster, both on offense and defense, I think they're going to match up pretty well. But to me, those tight ends are, again, the key to everything, because, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terry and Arnold, those guys are going to have their hands full with Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson, but, they're going to win probably most of those battles. So if they're able to move the football with those tight ends, I think Michigan's in really good shape.
Anthony, thank you so much for your time. We've got Katie Windham, Austin Hannon, and Blake Byler out there staying in the media hotel as well. So make sure we'll send them by, and I'll have them say thank you for me personally. But I appreciate your time. Enjoy the week, and we'll follow your coverage on 3.com, the Wolverine. I appreciate your time, sir.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. That's Anthony joining me. Anthony Broome joining me from on 3 Sports, the Wolverine. He got into LA like literally an hour or two ago, so I really appreciate him joining me right there. So there's a little bit of a Michigan perspective. I definitely agree with him that the Michigan tight ends, Loveland is going to be a huge factor. Loveland and Barner are going to be huge factors in this game. So look, we've gone an hour 15. We've heard from Joey Van Zummeren of MissouriCentral.com to get some Cotton Bowl perspective. We heard from Katie Windham, BamaCentral.com to get some Rose Bowl perspective, Alabama side. And we just heard from Anthony Broome to get some more Rose Bowl perspective on the Michigan side. I really appreciate everybody joining us. You can follow me at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media machines. If you want to connect, send me your comments, queries, questions, complaints right there. We'd really appreciate it. You can always subscribe, rate, and review the show at Joe Gaither, at the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. Send it to a friend. Get ready for bowl season. We're so excited about bowl season, Cotton Bowl getting going. Check it out on MizzouCentral.com and check out all our work at BamaCentral.com for the Rose Bowl. I'll come back with another edition, another show tomorrow. It'll be another Michigan man, probably somebody from The Athletic, and we'll check in with Blake Byler or Austin Hannon, one of the other correspondents out there on scene as we continue inching closer to the Rose Bowl right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.